Good morning, math friends. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are in Chapter 12, Lesson 8, and we're going to be talking about, again, how we use shapes and equal parts. And the new part of this is how I can find area of a rectangle. And what we mean by that is we want to find its space, how big it is. And we're not going to be using a lot of numbers to do this. So if we were in class together, if we had been in class together today, I would have given you special blocks that would help you count all of this out. We don't have them, and I don't think everyone has been able to print out the ones that I sent. So we're going to make a few changes in this lesson. So just follow along with me. Okay, let's go. So at the top here, it says rectangles can be partitioned. Remember, that means they can be broken up into equal-sized squares. You can count the squares to describe its size. So if we look at this first rectangle, it's been partitioned into how many parts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 squares make up this rectangle. We can also say the area is 8 squares. Okay, so that's how we're going to figure out how big that rectangle is by counting how many square blocks we can put into it. Now, if we had our pattern blocks, this would be done a little bit differently. So, but what I want you to do is let's look at one more example together. It says here 12 squares. This 12 means that 12 squares are used to make this up. Now, does this look familiar? It might look like something we did before, a long time ago, where we set up rows, very neat rows and columns of objects. Do you remember we did arrays? This is very similar to an array. Now what I want you to do is do numbers 1 through 6 on this page. And before I let you go to do that, look at Talk Math at the bottom. Explain how you would partition a rectangle into 6 equal-sized squares. Or, if you can explain it, show it. There are at least 2 ways that you can do it. Well, let's say 2 for now. For what we're doing, 2 is fine. How could you break up a rectangle into 6 squares? So complete this page and think about that. And let's move on. So for number 7 and 8, you're doing the same thing that you just did. Now look at 9 and 10. It says use color tiles to cover each rectangle. Write how many tiles were used. Now we can't do this because I can't put the tiles into your hands right now. So just look at number 9. There's a rectangle. And my squares are not going to perfectly fit in there. That's okay. So far, I've put 1 square in. I haven't really filled the rectangle. Can you take a guess, just by looking at this, how many tiles, how many squares will fit in this rectangle? Can you guess what the area of this rectangle is? Okay. Now, watch this. Now how many do you think there are? Let's find out if you are correct. So, 6 tiles were used for this rectangle. And I know my shapes aren't perfect here, so we just have to imagine that they are. So the answer to number 9 would be 6. Now look at number 10. How many of these same squares do you think would fit in number 10? Just take a guess. Let's see if you were right. So, for number 10, 4 tiles would be used to fill this rectangle. So the area is 4. All right, let's move on. Whoa, there's a lot of reading here. Okay, for number 11, it says draw a picture to solve. And before I go on, if you remember how to make an array, this might be very useful. Addison and Corinne each have a group of dominoes. Addison places 4 dominoes in each row. Addison places 4 dominoes in each row. She made 5 rows. Let's stop there for a moment. Addison places 4 dominoes in each row. She made 5 rows. 2, 3, 4. 4 dominoes in that row, and she made 5 rows. That's 2 rows. That's 3 rows. That's 4 rows. That's 5 rows. Okay, let's go back to our word problem. She made 5 rows. Corinne places 5 dominoes in each row. She made 3 rows. Okay, let's see if we can, well, we're not going to draw it. I'm not going to draw it, but you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, there's 1 row with 5. That's 2 rows with 5. That's 3 rows with 5. Now the question is, who has more dominoes? So there's an easy way for you to figure this out. You can just count them all. Remember, the one on the left is Addison. I'm going to put an A there. And the one on the right is Corinne. So you can count them and find out who has more dominoes. And in the next video, or maybe the one after the next one, I'm going to teach you a much faster way, faster than counting them, called multiplication. We're going to talk about that. Now let's go down to look at number 12. Larry was placing crackers on a tray. The tray held 4 rows of crackers. There were 16 crackers on the plate in all. How many crackers were in each column? Ooh, okay, you're going to have to think about this one. These are brain builders. So I'm going to let you do that one as part of your work. And then look at the bottom. Explain 2 ways to partition a rectangle into 4 equal parts. And if you watched the other video with the fractions, you might have seen enough rectangles for one day. How can you partition this rectangle into 4 equal parts? You can draw 3 vertical lines, because if you do that, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can draw 3 horizontal lines. 1, 2, 3. And I know these are not very nice lines. And you have 1 part, 2 parts, 3 parts, 4 parts. So you can draw 3 horizontal or vertical lines. Okay, so that's all you need to know for the right math part. Okay, and your homework is to complete pages 787 and 788. Make sure you've watched the other video as well, because that one's going to be important. And that's it. Have a fantastic day. The end.